Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1970. We're going to be taking a look at Badfinger and they're going to be playing through No Matter What. So let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on.
It's called No Matter What. No matter what you are, I will always be with you. Doesn't matter what you do, girl. Ooh, girl, with you. No matter what you do, I will always be around. Won't you tell me what you found, girl? Ooh, girl, want you. Knock out the old gray wall. Be a part of it all. Nothing to see, nothing to say, nothing to do. If you would give me all, as I would give it to you, nothing would be, nothing would be, nothing would be. No matter where you go, there will always be a place. Can't you see it in my face, girl? Ooh, girl, want you. Be a part of it all. Nothing to see, nothing to say, nothing to do. If you would give me all, as I would give it to you, nothing would be, nothing would be, nothing would be. No matter what you are, I will always be with you. Doesn't matter what you do, girl. Ooh, girl, with you. Ooh, girl, you, girl, want you. Ooh, girl, you, girl, want you.
I'm just going to jump in there because it does cut off at the end. But what a great performance that was. And the first thing to mention is Pete's vocals, Pete Ham. As soon as he comes in, it's just your attention is grabbed because of the quality of his vocal, also being so on pitch the whole time, but he's got that gravelly quality to his voice. It's really that power pop sound, and a lot of people will be able to attribute some of that Beatles sound in there, especially with the harmonies, because we get the luxury of having three great vocalists in this band that can harmonize with each other, and they do a great job of it here. And also when Joey looks at the camera, there's so many cool elements to this band, and unfortunately, as we're going to find out with this analysis, it's a cautionary tale with Badfinger as a band and the whole music industry side of it. But let's deal with the analysis of the performance first. And the first thing to mention here is that solid back line. They've got Tom Evans on bass and Mike Gibbons on drums, and so tight throughout the whole performance. And once that foundation is there and it's solid, it means that those rhythm guitars and the lead guitar and the harmony vocals can just sit on top of that, and we get a great live sound here. Just four guys, and the advantage that we've got is that Pete plays guitar as well, so we get that double whammy of a great vocalist and another guitar player to add into the mix. And I mentioned Joey and his cheeky face earlier, Joey Molland playing rhythm guitar, also lead guitar, but unfortunately I think the director wasn't sure which camera to go to for that particular section, and we just focused in on the rhythm hand. But when we did pop over to Pete's playing, we could see that he was using that hybrid picking technique of holding the pick with his thumb and first finger, and then supplying the picking with the second finger as well, so we get more of a picking sound underneath that lead guitar. And a lot of people will reference the similarities in sound between Badfinger and the Beatles, which is understandable given the harmony vocals, the four-piece band as well, being a British band, and also having this tight link to the Beatles anyway, and just the style of music, because they signed to the Beatles record label in 1968, and that was Apple Records, and the Beatles were the only other band on the label at the time. And they were one of those bands that did have success over the course of a few years, most notably between 1969 and 1973 is where they did really well in the charts, not only in the UK but the USA as well. So they got a lot of attention, sold a lot of records, and the problem that Badfinger had as a band was purely to do with the music industry side of things. And this is something that I mention on this channel all the time, how artists that are around nowadays are so lucky because you can do everything yourself on the internet. You can promote yourself, you can record yourself, you can produce yourself. It's something that back in the day you didn't have the luxury of being able to promote yourself instantly to, for example, 73,000 people on this channel. It's something that you had to pay other people to do, and people took liberties with bands because bands are artists, and artists don't know about business. They know about playing guitar, they know about writing songs, they know about being artistic. They don't know about contracts and the law, and this is something that really did hit Badfinger hard in the late 60s, early 70s, because they were musicians and they were doing great, writing great music, doing great performances, but they didn't know about the business side of the industry. And to put it in perspective, they recorded 5 albums over the course of 5 years, and in 1969, 1970 and 1971, they had singles that all got into the top 10 in the US charts, so they really were successful in their sales. And in 1969, they had a lot of success with Come and Get It. That got into the top 10 in the UK and the USA, and that was from their album called Magic Christian Music. And in 1970, their manager called Bill Collins was looking around in the USA for potential venues for a tour, and this is where he bumped into Stan Polly. And on meeting Stan, I think he struck them as an important business guy, maybe somebody who was a mover and a shaker and could pull strings and help them with their career. So Stan got them to sign a business management contract with him, and Stan then set up the third-party company, which was Badfinger Enterprises Incorporated. And this is after the fact that they've already signed with Apple Records, so any original material that is written by any member of the band is going to go through the Apple Corporation's publishing company. So the songwriters are already giving away their rights through that company. So if Apple, as a record label and a publishing company, were to collapse, those songwriters have no rights to their own songs. So that's already a potential problem. And now signing a management contract, or should I say a business management contract with Stan, means that they're now signing away so many more things. And the fact that Stan has now set up a third-party company should be ringing alarm bells all over the place, because I always mention on this channel about management companies and managers who set up a third-party company to put money in and royalties, and Stan was one of those guys that knew the industry inside out. So he wrote everything into this third-party company, so it meant that all the payment for the royalties, but also performance royalties and tickets and performances, TV performances, it all would have gone in to this third-party company, and the band don't have access to that because he owns the company. I did a video on Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne, and again, Sharon is so switched on with the industry. The first thing that she did is set up a third-party management company so that the band members, if they did write a song, they wouldn't get access to that because it's the publishing company who take the royalties. So unfortunately, signing with Stan was a really bad move. Obviously, now with hindsight, we can look back and see exactly how they were done over as musicians, and you can't blame them because they are artists. That's what they do. It's just writing songs, performing. They're playing music for the love of it. And also, there's this whole romantic notion of being signed and being a signed band to a record label and being signed to a management company. And it's something that fortunately nowadays it's losing that whole romantic side of it, and people know that really there isn't any romance. The record label give you a certain amount of money to record and to do videos and for transport and for renting venues, and all of that money has to be paid back. It's a loan. And fortunately people now understand that. But back in the day, musicians didn't. And sometimes a record label, when they know they've got a really talented band with really talented writers, they will forward them a cash sum, even $500,000, in order to get them to sign on that dotted line, because they know once they have their signatures, they are going to make millions and millions and millions just for the cost of $500,000 to get their signature. And I just want to throw a few figures at you for the earnings between 1970 and 1971 for the band members, but also the management company, because they made about $24,000 in profits, and that got split up between the bands. So they made $6,000 each, roughly. It varied from one band member to the next. But in terms of the management company, Stan made $75,000 for the management company, and that was the management commission. So that was outside of the profits. So that was just something that Stan made in this third-party company that he had access to and nobody else did, and it was just money in his pocket, which is absolutely outrageous because the profits for the band were stated as $24,000. That was all it was. So this $75,000 was just a commission that he took aside from the profits. So already Stan, having signed with them, let's remember in 1970, this was the first year, as soon as he signed the band, he was taking $75,000 of their earnings. And the band at the time are totally unaware that any of this is going on, because they're still getting paid, they're still touring, they're still recording albums for Apple Records. And talking about Apple Records, this is where Badfinger's luck was just totally out, because the record label was now having serious problems, and because of that publishing company with Apple Records, it means that all of the royalties, if the company goes bust, how do the songwriters get their royalties? Because they're tied up in a company that's now gone bust. So that was an absolute mess, and it folded in 1973, Apple Records. So with the collapse of Apple Records in 1973, Stan then went over to Warner Brothers Records and negotiated a £3 million recording contract with them. And of course he said to the guys, you're going to be millionaires. But what he didn't mention to them is that he owned the third-party company that all the money would be going into. And I just want to read out some of the figures as well, because they were due to do 2 albums a year. If they completed those albums, they'd get $225,000 for every album they delivered. They also got a 12% share of all the retail in the USA. That is a massive market, and 8.5% market for the rest of the world. So all of that retail worldwide, they are making so much money. I say he is making so much money. It's all going into his third-party company. And again, to the band, this would sound amazing. These percentages, you just think, wow, we're going to be so rich. But they don't realize how the business has been worked out, that they're not going to get that. It's not going to come to them. It's all going to Stan with his company. And it's a real shame, because they were such a great band and got so done over. So they continued with Warner Brothers Records, and they forwarded $250,000 to Stan to put in an account for everybody to have access to. So the record label would use it if they needed it for recording or anything like that. Also, the band members were supposed to have access to it as well. But Stan put that money in a bank account that nobody could find, and he didn't tell anybody where that bank account was. So Stan was then going to be sued by Warner Brothers and the publishing company. So the band were in a catch-22 situation, because the record label ceased all distribution and promotion of their album Wish You Were Here, and they couldn't release any new material because the publishing company was suing them. So they couldn't do anything. They had no money coming in and no way of making more money because they couldn't release anything. So it was a nightmare situation for the band, because they were totally oblivious to everything going on with Stan and all of these dealings that he was doing under the counter. And Of course, the record label saw something was up and started the lawsuit, but they were all included in that lawsuit because they have signed contracts with this company, this third-party company, and it all came to a head in 1975. And it's hard to explain and understand the gravity of the situation because these were people's lives. Pete Ham had just bought a new house for £30,000, and he and his wife were expecting a child, and his check didn't clear in March. And his check didn't clear in April. This goes for all of the band members. And unfortunately, he committed suicide in 1975. That's how serious it was. That's how much of a mess it was with all of the court proceedings. He saw no other way out. And unfortunately, this is all due to Stan and everything that he did, just doing over the band and getting them involved in such a horrific situation with business elements they didn't understand, they didn't even know that they were part of. And Pete actually referenced Stan in his suicide note. Unfortunately, in 1983, Tom Evans was chatting with Joey Molland about, I think, royalties to do with the track Without You, and also about their time back at Apple and some of the money that maybe one felt they should have had and the other maybe got. I don't know what it was, but unfortunately Tom committed suicide in 1983 as well. So it really does drive it home how serious these things are, how much they affect people in their lives, that two members of the same band commit suicide because of the dealings of the music industry side of it, and also just getting done over by a management company, but also a manager, Stan, who really did take them to the cleaners and really affected their lives so seriously that it resulted in the deaths of two of these guys that we see performing in this video. But just a final word on this music. Go back to Badfinger as a band. Appreciate the music, appreciate the art and the ability that they had playing live as a band. As we can see here, harmonies spot on, great vocals from Pete. He has such a great standalone voice, but also the tightness live. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next one.